Lobbyists play a big role in American politics. They get bills passed, politicians elected, and national programs funded. But according to a 2013 Gallup poll, only 6% of Americans view lobbyists as honest or ethical. So how is it that one of our most politically influential groups is also one of the least trustworthy? Let's start by looking at what lobbying actually is. The National Conference of State Legislatures defines lobbying as a citizen's right to speak freely, to impact decisions, and petition the government. And lobbying can be that simple. People or groups petitioning their representatives to vote for issues they care about. But that's not all lobbying is. It's also big business carried out by professionals who register with the government and are paid by third parties to lobby on their behalf. It sounds ominous, but it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. There are hundreds of examples of professionals lobbying for things like AIDS prevention and poverty relief. One group named Results successfully lobbied to increase government funding for child survival by $50 million. But of course, there is another side to lobbying as well. Between 2008 and 2010, a study of 30 different corporations found that they spent $476 million on lobbying, and in return received almost $11 billion in tax rebates. Some would say this is a good example of big business using lobbyists to cheat the system. Critics of lobbying also point to corruption cases like the Jack Abramoff scandal and increased lobbying by corporations after major ecological disasters like the BP oil spill. They see this as evidence that the system is broken and needs reform. So why hasn't the system changed? Well, politicians have tried, but the benefits of lobbying typically outweigh the desire for reform. President Obama, for example, campaigned for reform while running in 2008, and on his first day in office, he even signed an executive order restricting lobbyists from taking certain government positions, which was a good step forward for lobby reform. But then in 2013, he allowed the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, who exist under the executive branch, to give over $500,000 to a registered lobbyist to help promote his Affordable Care Act. The fact of the matter is that lobbying isn't just a political reality for our elected officials, it can also be a financial boon. According to reports, in 2012, half of all retiring congressmen became lobbyists, which makes sense because lobbying is a $3 billion a year industry that former politicians happen to be uniquely qualified for. Is the American lobbying system ready for an overhaul? What are the first steps to reform? Please let us know in the comments below. And for another video on the government, click here now to see how much power the president legally has. The Supreme Court recently ruled that 3 presidential appointments were made illegally. The justices unanimously agreed that President Obama overstepped his powers, which begs the question, what powers does the executive branch actually have? Remember, we upload new episodes 5 days a week here on TestTube, so subscribing is the easiest way to see them all.